Welcome to the Purple Sky Thinking for Leaders podcast. This podcast is for you if you lead people, teams, or the organisation. You might be a leader or a manager yourself, or you might be part of the support team to help those people to be really successful. I'm Anwen Bottois. I'm the Leadership Success Coach and founder of Purple Sky Consulting, and I'm going to be the host for this podcast. My mission is to help as many leaders as possible to really love what they do. I want to help you to feel more confident, more capable, more effective, so that you can build and grow happy, healthy, more successful teams. This podcast is going to be all about helping you to love leading. Let's get started. Hello, welcome to this next episode of the Purple Sky Thinking for Leaders podcast. Really lovely to have you back with us. This first episode of this new series or season, whichever language you're using, is with the really wonderful Michael Hubbard from Make Your Habits. We're going to be talking about all the things to help you be productive, focused, and really help you get stuff done in 2025. So I hope you really enjoy this episode. Love to hear what you think of it. Feel free to leave us a review or add any comments or thoughts that you have yourself for this episode. Right, let's get into it. Welcome, Michael. Really lovely to have you here with us on the podcast. So why don't you do a little introduction for everybody?
Well, thank you, Anwen. So I am Michael, and I'm the Director of Questions at Make Your Habits. And this year, I'm on a crazy mission to help 100 leaders bring 100 ideas to life. So I've had previous versions of myself, been an ops manager, been head of customer success, been head of customer service, run venture centres. And I found that I always used to get stuck bringing my ideas to life. And I've sort of spent the last 10 years or so working out how to become really productive in a really focused way. And the last place I was at before becoming the Director of Questions was a prop tech, so working in software. So have learned the world of agile and really quickly bringing ideas and products to life. And that's what I want to bring to small businesses and other people in the ops space, because I think those two positions are very interchangeable. They do lots of similar work.
Lovely. That's fantastic. So how about travel? So if you've been listening to the podcasts before now, or you know anything about my background, dear listeners, you'll know I love a bit of travel. So I like to ask our guests a little bit about where they like to travel. So Michael, tell me a little bit about your favourite holiday or travel destination.
Well, it's not. Can I cheat a bit? It's not quite travel, because I used to work in the Alps in France, so I love it up there. So I think I did about 18 months non-stop when I was in my early 20s out there. So summers and winters, and I just love it there. The pace of life is just a bit slower, fewer people, and just in a beautiful place. And whether it's the summer and you're swimming in a lake, or it's the winter and you're cruising down a mountain, there's just nothing quite like it, and especially in the UK. So any chance I get, I want to take me to the mountains and leave me on the side of it, and I'll be happy.
I've never asked you about your French skills. Did that include learning French, being in the Alps?
Towards the end it did. So I used to work in school tours, so PGL.
Ooh, yeah, cool.
It was one of those very formative moments of my life. I think it was like less than 24 hours after signing off my GMVQ. I'm generally not very qualified in leisure and sport as an 18-year-old. I was on a coach to go work in the south of France. So literally been 18 for a couple of months. Pack your bags. Landed in a British school tour centre. Loads of British kids, but there was also 90 British young people between about 18 and 25. So in that environment, actually learning French didn't really happen. The opportunities weren't there apart from the odd day off. But as I moved towards ski season, towards the end, I was repping a resort and things like that.
Okay, yeah.
So I can go and tell them tell people pillows a bit too hard, order a steak, things like that. All the important things. Now, when I go on holiday, I've got all the important language, and after a couple of beers, I'm much more fluent.
Yeah, so that always improves the fluency for most people, doesn't it? And being able to order a beer in the language of the locals always helps, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic, that's lovely. I don't think we've had a ski holiday come up or ski environment come up before, so thank you for that. So tell us a little bit about your leadership experience. So it's really important that we share with our listeners kind of our own experiences of leading, and you've touched on a little bit of your background and experience already. Tell us a little bit about that and what you learned about yourself from that experience.
well, it's quite a bit of a funny journey. So I mentioned I used to do school tours. So I ended up running adventure centres, running a small team of people looking after busloads of kids coming in every week. So quite early on, used to dealing with
Patience.
Yeah. So dealing with quite young staff, but also teachers with lots of responsibility and actually everything that comes with that. But eventually started to take its toll doing a 6-day week. Didn't know what a weekend was. So I moved into soft play in the UK. Oh, yeah. So I actually in Chelsea. So that was even more interesting. So I used to have 40 staff working on a shift, do 1,200 children, 1,200 people through the door. It's 18 birthday parties on a Saturday. And this was in Chelsea. So some people paying £500 to £1,000 for a children's birthday party.
Wow.
And the idea was for it to be high-end soft play. So I was doing that. And why I'm telling you this is because I made the logical jump from being the entertainment manager there to being a customer service manager in a social landlord.
Obviously.
Obviously.
What brought that on then?
I was looking for Monday to Friday. I wanted my weekends.
Yeah.
I didn't want to work 12 days in a row. All sort of stuff you get in the hospitality industry. And I, by chance, found a job with Richmond Housing Partnership in London. And their aim was, I got there, and they were a year into the ambition to be the best customer service provider in the UK and a brilliant employer. Full stop. Nothing about delivering brilliant homes. It was in there, but they had a really clear mission, and they brought in the commercial director from Marks and Spencer's, head of customer service from Eurostar. Bear in mind, we're delivering council housing.
Yeah.
And the aim was to do that. So that was where I went from someone who could organise other people and be responsible and take responsibility into actually quite forward-thinking leadership. And the commercial director there, she was teaching us radical candor, the concept of radical candor in 2012.
Lovely.
Way ahead of where people are just finding that book now, and more talking that sort of thing about what good leadership looks like. And we used to get speakers in all the time. And actually, that's where I burnt out. Got very close to burning out. Because I was in the best place to work. It was certified to be the best place to work. But I was first in, last out. I was doing everything. I was trying to be everything for everyone.
Yeah.
Saying yes to everything the employees were asking, being the point of escalation. And I just got really close to burning out. And then a speaker came in and he was just like, right. And this was a general statement. He's like, I just want, when anyone says, how are you feeling? To say brilliant. And he's like, 21 days. Whenever everyone says, how are you doing? Just say brilliant. And I used to go, I feel a bit crap, feel a bit worn down. But that moment got me to realise that you can change a very small thing in your world and have a massive effect. So doing that 21 days of brilliant challenge was that, because it changes how you respond to people, how you show up. Actually, as more and more speakers came in, every month we got a new lesson from brilliant, very good corporate speakers, people that were like, I want you to think about risk. I want you to think about getting the right blend of team, things like that. And it was get gambler in and things like that. And it just kept putting layers and layers of brilliant thinking in. And then with the environment of what they were doing as well, got me to be like, okay, this is good. And I became told I was very good at managing and leading, but couldn't quite get a break there because there was lots of very good people. So found a job at this prop tech, so offering software to private property management companies rather than social.
Amazing.
And then I was head of ops there, and then I got the adventure of just rolling out lots of innovations, put in a new customer service platform, put in pensions, because that was when that all kicked off.
Wow.
In ISO 27001, optimized the processes, grew a team, did all the recruitment, but all of that was based around building in the processes of agile style project management. So it was a weird journey. So did this really RHP were described as the Google of social housing. Then went to prop tech, which was very commercially driven development. And then along that journey within that prop tech, I went and did an ILM level 7 in strategic management. And more recently, I got myself certified as an ICF coach because I had lots of experience.
Yeah.
And I was very aware of giving people what I thought the answer was, when actually I know the best changes I made were when people helped me get the answer myself.
It's so important, that, isn't it? Hey, sometimes we need a bit of ideas generating, and we need a little bit of kind of nudging or thinking about things, like your brilliant challenge. Sometimes you need to be prompted into trying stuff, don't you? But
Yeah.
the deep down change comes from you, doesn't it? It comes from within. So yeah, that's really interesting about your experience at the housing place as well, and their attitude to culture and what that means for the business in terms of performance, but also not losing sight there. I think there's a really interesting point there of, it might be a really great place to work, but how are your individuals feeling and operating and performing within that environment? And how do you make sure as senior leaders you're staying close to that, to avoid that burnout type situation? Because it doesn't matter that it's brilliant. If you're still trying to over be, then that can be too hard, can't it?
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's what they were very good at. There was a lot of conscious effort to get the leaders all on the same level with the right messaging. So when we were going for certification for investors and people, best places to work, etc., we had meetings every fortnight around employee scores and around what the people were thinking. And part of it was to make us a brilliant employer, but also how we improve our service. And just seeing that level of, to get a cohesive leadership group, you need them to regularly be sitting and talking about how they lead.
Totally.
Not talking about what the outputs of their team are. Actually, are your people engaged? Are they happy?
Yeah.
And
it's the inputs, isn't it? It's all about the inputs. It always is, isn't it? Like, if we're not doing the right stuff in, guess what? The right stuff ain't coming out. It's like...
Absolutely. And that's what I see now on my journey. Companies that are struggling, their leaders are very much struggled on the output of their team only. And there's none of that other pre-work. It's all about looking at the lag and what's coming out. Okay,
lovely. Thank you for sharing so much of that. That's really, really lovely. So let's get diving into some of the things we'd like you to kind of give us your insights and help with. So leaders can be really swamped. But is it productive? So where do you think we need to be in terms of how leaders approach that from a perspective of really taking notice of the difference?
It's an interesting one. There's lots of... It's all contextually driven, but one of my favourite frames is thinking about, are they working on the business or in the business? Because a lot of people that come up through a business to positions of leadership are very good at doing the in the business work, the work with clients, the work with the data, the work on the products, but they aren't necessarily working on the bigger picture of how the team functions and their people. And when people are feeling that they are burning, especially early on into roles, if they're feeling they're burning out, they're probably doing too much of the old familiar work that feels comfortable, warm and fuzzy and nice, but not actually the work that has a multiplier on it, like having a conversation with one of their team members about how they could be more productive rather than doing more work themselves.
I think that's really lovely insight in terms of that kind of being sucked into the stuff we're comfortable with as leaders, because maybe we haven't had that. Is it because we haven't really had that ability to understand the role we've moved into, or we haven't had the development or the support to move in? Why do you see that happening? What's going on?
I think it can be both, but I always use my business school, Make Your Habits, and I always use the frame of habit because I think it helps demystify a lot of changes you can make in your personal, the way you turn up personally. And actually, I find people often say yes to things they know because it's easy to say yes to the things you're good at and ignore, and that's a procrastination, right? Saying yes to the things you are good at is a procrastination. If it's not your responsibility, it should be done by somebody else. It is a procrastination. Actually, it's the being given the space to do the things you haven't done before. I mentioned before in the intro about the feedback model that we were learning early on in the social landlords. One of the things that the team employees were saying was, we don't get feedback. So we spent 6 months being coached on feedback by the corporate services director personally.
Wow.
But does that make, but like in terms of actually the thing we want you to do as a leadership team is feedback. We think it's that important. We are going to run 2-hour sessions every 6 weeks for you to learn and practice and really make that matter. And that's a sign of intent.
Yes.
You've been given a skill that you need to go and practice, and that's you working on your business, because you're seeing things and then you go, right, this is what I've seen, this is the effect, and this is the change I need. And having that simple model of giving feedback allows you to have a good conversation with someone that you can help, and then you can share your expertise with, and then they can come on the journey with you.
Really valuable. And that is the real difference between being busy and productive, isn't it? It's you as a leader doing the stuff that actually adds value to your team, to the business, by you being in the right space and doing the right things, not just doing the stuff that makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And what do you see the benefits of like making that switch, being in a space where you're more productive?
I think it's about, that's a good question. I think if you see your job as leading others and helping them as a leader, I always see my job as getting people promoted and getting them to the next level on their journey, because that you can see people moving along. And actually, but if you become, the frame I like to think about is, when you get promoted, have you been made the senior analyst or the manager of analysis? If you're the senior analyst, you do more spreadsheet work and you do more complicated spreadsheet work. If you're the head of that department, you shouldn't be doing more complicated versions of the work you did previously. Your job is now getting others to do that work.
Absolutely.
That's the real, and I think job titles are really important. What title you give someone is the permission you give them to do that bit of work.
It's interesting. Tell me a bit more about that. What do you see going on there?
I think it's easy to put the word manager after a lot of titles. You see people get promoted and you become manager. When I was in PropTech, I think we had advisor, lead, and manager. So you could be a lead on something.
Yes.
So especially with client work, you are leading that piece of client work.
So like projects lead.
Project lead or product lead.
Yeah.
So you are leading on that product and you're shaping that. And that is your responsibility. Whereas if you're the manager, you're managing the bigger picture. You're then working with the people under that. And it will depend on your business, how it works, but having that consistency so people know the frame with which you work in is really important. Because if you have lots of different job titles, people don't know what to expect from each other either. So I think actually having quite a curated set of roles and titles can actually be quite liberating too, because you know.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. And there's something there around where the business sets in terms of the expectation setting it does around. So yes, this is a job title, this is what it means, and therefore this is the expectations of you in that role. Too often I speak to people who have stepped into leadership roles, and in that kind of first onboarding or transition phase, nobody's had a conversation with them around what those expectations are in that leadership capacity, or what they expect the shift to be from where they were to where they're going. And I just find that so interesting in terms of, yes, I know they've had a job description and they've maybe gone through an interview process, but actually it's really valuable to be clear as an organization in terms of how you're expecting people to show up and be productive in that role, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it relies on the people above as well, having some boundaries in their mind about what they can ask, like even especially newer leaders, how they even pass tasks down. You say, I want you to do that. That is a trigger for the person below you to go, oh, I need to do that, or I need your department to do this.
Yeah.
Very subtle changes.
Yeah, the ask.
Those are where you see the great leaders. Does that make sense? Especially really, and that's a habit. And this is my whole geeky thing of everything we do can be built down to a habit. When you give somebody a task, what language do you use? How do you pass that down? How do you empower them? Or how do you might want to be very specific with your language. You might say, I want you to own this and I want you to work with this customer person. Got it. Or we have this problem. This is the end result. Don't mind how you do it, but this is the end result I want.
Language is so important in a leader or exec role in terms of kind of how that then sets the framing up. But I think something around your point before around feedback, the value of that feedback and being really good at feedback means that you can be, almost told by your team, you're not giving me what I need at the moment because you're not being productive, Mr. Manager, because actually you're delving into topics and work that isn't useful for you to be doing, but actually I'd have needed you to maybe coach me on how to do that better instead. And kind of pairing those kind of skills and those abilities together as a leader is about getting you to that point of productivity, isn't it? It's about getting away from, I understand my role, I know how to do my role, and I put my role into place kind of thing. It's like, these are the things people need to be able to do to be productive rather than swamped in stuff. And it's happier, isn't it? Isn't that a happier place to be? Isn't there more joy in your job like that?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of joy to be had in completing things and having that sense of completion. And that is probably one of the things that I challenge a lot of people around, is the horizons they put on things they're working on. Quite often you get omni projects of doom that are just make something better, just make this faster, and that can feel endless. And that's the thing that drives people to work extra late, because they want to be a little bit faster for tomorrow, but then you're back at square one because you were a little bit faster.
Yeah. Or it wasn't clear enough, and therefore we've done stuff that we didn't really need to do, or we've wasted time doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, you go down the whole 7 wastes. Pick your frame. Know your problem, pick your frame. For me, a lot of the time as well.
Really interesting. So I really love your approach of wanting to help leaders bring 100 ideas to life in 2025. So how does that happen? Tell me some more about that, and where do you think they can benefit from prioritizing with that type of thinking?
So I'll tell you a little bit about what I do, and then I can tell how people can do it at home. They don't have to do it with me. And actually, if they come to my profile, most of the tools they need are there, so you can go do it for yourself.
Thoroughly recommended. Go and find Michael, and we'll make sure all the details are in the comments.
But for me, it's about having a very clear outcome in mind when you start. It sounds cheesy. Start with the end in mind, but I run a thing called the Productivity Pod. Bringing 100 ideas to life. So I run open productivity pods, which are 9-week sprints. So you bring an idea, and then by the end of the 9 weeks, the idea is we've built it and put it into the world. My favorite example is I was working with someone. He had an ongoing business, and he was like, I need to start up another arm of the business. I think it's going to take me 6 months to build my website. And bear in mind, this is income, right? I want a new bit of my business to bring in more income. It's going to take me 6 months to build a website. And what we did, that is a long time, right?
That's a long sprint.
That is a long sprint. That's not even a sprint. That's an
It's a marathon.
Right? Yeah. And then I was like, right, okay, you can come, but we're going to do it in 9 weeks. It's like 9? But yeah, 9 weeks. And the idea is you take that goal and you break it down into 3 things. So building that website, in my mind, there are 3 bigger tasks in there. There's pick a platform, there's work out what your platform looks like in a layout, and then there's write the content.
Perfect.
But they all come down into smaller tasks as well. And that's what this is about. This is about having a big goal broken down into key deliverables, but then those are broken down into smaller tasks that you can then put into your calendar. So it might be, you might have 3 separate tasks to find 3 separate website platforms, providers, and then do an analysis. And those are each 1-hour tasks that you can put in your calendar. And there's a 4th task to compare the 3.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is you work out how much time you have in that week, and then you pick the amount of tasks that you have to do in that week, and you get it done.
Lovely.
Yep. And the outcome for this guy was he did his website in 6 weeks. So he went from 6 months to 6 weeks because he was very focused. And what I talk about in the productivity pod is looking to have things either in your hand, so if it's physical product in your hand, or something in your digital pocket. So you have committed something to a document and it is there. It is an artifact. It is an asset for your business. And the idea is you build these up, and then at the end of the period, you can do what you like with it.
Yeah.
It's really important that you see the world as you do a piece of work and you have something in your hand.
Yeah.
Because then you can build on that and iterate out. And that's the whole Scrum style most people have probably seen it in TV programs of loads of post-its on a wall and they move it down the wall. It's that, but it's teaching you in the most simple, stripped down way. I'm a raving dyslexic, so I die in detail. So, and that's the whole thing, is that what's the most simple version of this task I can do? What do I need at the end of it? How much time do I need? And how important is it to me?
Clarity and focus, I'm hearing. Yeah. Clarity, focus. And then what was also interesting about what you said there was kind of that staying really connected to it and keeping it really real and present with you. Just is a really lovely way of kind of framing that. That way to get stuff done actually is not to lose sight of it, is to keep it front and centre.
Yeah. And I think it's so nice having something at the end of a week or whatever that period is you're working with, 1 week or 2. You can say, oh, look, I've picked my website. I know where this is going. And then the next week might be, I'm going to spend 2 hours watching YouTube videos on the different layouts I can have. That is the task of studying the thing you're about to use is probably one of the least utilised I see across personal development and new software. How often do you buy a piece of software and you go, I'm just going to mash the keyboard till I get something that I like?
Let's hope it'll be okay. That's what people have told me to buy.
Yeah. And that's it. You buy the thing that everyone else has said is good, but you don't actually do the work to learn it.
Yeah.
And I think actually you could spend a week learning what a good layout looks like and not do anything productive. But your task might be, I'm just going to watch 10 hours from these people of videos. And it feels really counterproductive. And it's really hard. It's not like to do something that you don't get the norm. And this is the habit of just doing stuff. And what most people do when they come to do a website is they write their content first because it feels nice. And they either write too much, the wrong content.
Yeah.
But if you do it at the right point, you will write the right amount of content and you can put it in place. And this is what it's always about, is about doing the right work.
Love that. I used to put my team through, probably some of them would feedback or not, maybe. We would do a monthly 1 hour together reviewing all the stuff we'd planned to get done that month and how far we got with it and what did that mean for the next month, and also the stuff that kind of landed that we hadn't planned to do and what did that mean for kind of what was going on in the department and stuff. And having that focus, giving yourself the opportunity to be clear about what you're trying to get done and why, is really valuable, and it brings you together and it gives you focus, and that's really important. So if we think about the team, how can leaders, do you think, use that principle that you're talking about with their individual teams to help them be productive? What's your thoughts on that?
I think this is another one of the lessons I talk about is knowing what the hell no's are. So in any job is knowing what a no is. Yes. And a no can be something that you're very good at and that might be useful in another week. But actually this week, it's interesting you spoke about months, and immediately I was just like, that's quite a long time, because if you do something wrong on the first day, you've gone in the wrong direction.
Totally get that.
No, if it worked for you, great. And this is why I was saying, I am not an evangelist that will tell you to one way or another, but this is why I go for 1 week, 2 weeks, because actually you can catch yourself going in the wrong direction.
Totally, yeah.
And I always talk about hell knows. So if you're building a website as the big picture, and you've also got a newsletter on your list of things you want to create this year, that's a no. For 9 weeks, it's no. You might want to work out what to do with that idea. So some people have a notebook. Some people just like, no, not doing it. I'm not allowing my brain to go down that rabbit hole and spend an hour thinking about something that doesn't serve me getting my website into the world, which is going to make me more money. And if you can, as the leader, think about what the no's are for the team, but also get the team to think about what the no's are.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole nother session on how you say no and how you offset it.
Totally is, yeah.
Like giving feedback, saying no is a skill.
Yes, it is.
And a great party trick, if someone's struggling either way with being overwhelmed and burnout, I'd say, what's your default way of saying no? As a conversation starter.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of people that say, I don't have one. So that tiny habit change of the, okay, learn how to say no to things that aren't a priority.
That's a lovely idea. How about if we look at that against the other priorities we've got this week?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that. Or, so thanks for thinking of me. I don't have capacity for that.
Yeah, totally. Love it. Yeah. So keeping focus, I love the hell no mantra, getting into that space of going, actually, should I be saying hell no to this because of what I've committed to for myself or for my team and how that looks. So I think that's really lovely. Any other tips or thoughts you want to share before we kind of wrap up, Michael?
I would say try things. Is that don't just do something because an idiot with a camera tells you to do it. Does that mean is to actually try it and don't be afraid to make it work for you? Because I've tried lots of things. Something that's never worked for me is journaling. Just like can't get on with it. I just lots of people say it's great, a journal. I'm just like, no, try it, and it doesn't do anything for me. But the thing that really works for me is starting my day and going, right, what are the 3 things I need? What else am I saying no to? And it's that simplicity. So I'd say don't be afraid to try things. And also,
absolutely love that.
Don't stick to it because you think it's because that's what everyone else is doing. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you.
Yeah. And sometimes you need to keep testing to check that it's not the right thing, and don't give up because it feels hard. But if it's really not right for you, totally look for something else or just adjust it, Sometimes it's just a little bit of a tweak, Maybe I'm not one for journaling either, to be honest, but I like the reflective process and I like thinking about stuff. That doesn't mean I'm writing it down. So out on a walk or, connecting stuff while I'm listening to an audiobook, that would work for me.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's okay to find different stuff. Lovely. So thank you so much, Michael. That's been really, really wonderful to have your insight. Where can people find you? Where can people go and connect or find more about you and your business?
So if people are looking for me, there's 3 places. Find me on LinkedIn. So I put a lot of information and free tools out on LinkedIn because I think it's really important that people can see what it's like to work with me and how I work as well. So there's lots of free items out there in the world. I also have a YouTube channel, so you can find it. It's Make Your Habits. And in there's 2 interview series. I do one called Ops Up Inside Your Head, where I interview ops leaders and we talk about the habits that they see in their organization. I also have an interview series called 5 Habits Of. So we look at habits that you can do within your business. So, for example, I've got one of 5 habits of people that use email to grow their business, another one, 5 habits to stay fresh, things like that. So lots of different people, and they're very consumable, very quick. They're 25 minutes, and that they are done in this format as well. So quite light, nothing too heavy, and they're aimed just to help people sharpen things up that they want.
Fantastic.
And I always have a newsletter. So if you'd like to see the crazy writings of a dyslexic man, well, there's quite a lot going on in there. So there is always a deep dive into a pro habit. So the habits I think are really important. There's a free tool each week. There's an offer I give away. So there's something that you can get for getting that newsletter, get a bit sooner than everyone else. And you just get my general musings on, and it's called My Productivity Prod.
Excellent. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all that. We've been working together for a little while and Michael's done some stuff in my course and things like that. And I love spending time with you and having conversations with you. And Michael's content's really great. And there's loads of really brilliant stuff on there. So please recommend that you go and connect with him. So thank you so much, Michael, for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining this episode of the Purple Sky Thinking for Leaders podcast. You'll find all the resources and the links that we mentioned down in the show notes. If you love this episode, why not share it with somebody else in a leadership role who you think would find this useful? If you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if we've earned it, why not leave us a 5-star review? I'm Anwen, your host, and I look forward to welcoming you back to the Purple Sky Thinking for Leaders podcast very soon. Bye for now.